Matt, the last thing fire services need right now is yet another heat wave, but that's what they've got, and with it, worse than seemingly the wildfires. They are flaring up on a daily basis across England and Wales, and if Di pans across now, you'll see the smoke condensed here, possibly a sense of the flames as well. You can hear the crackle of the flames. This fire is creeping ever closer. We're in a safe position here, but the smoke has been filling this valley all day since the fire started earlier this morning, and it's now creeping down into this valley towards the homes, and that's why there's so many fire appliances here. They're trying to douse the sections of the areas outside the homes just to protect them, but they're worried about how much protection that's going to give them, and they're also worried about this fire spreading into the next valley. The South Wales Fire and Rescue Service today said that they are dealing with 30 wildfire incidents. That's just today, just in South Wales. And I was speaking to one firefighter earlier, and I asked him to describe the challenge they've been facing over the last few days, and he said, I'll sum it up in one word, and that's insane, and that they've been running out of resources. Wildfires here are not uncommon at this time of year. We've covered them here in the past, but it's the frequency which is so striking, and there have been more in the last 6 months across England and Wales than in the two highest periods recorded before that. So that is the situation here in Wattstown.
OK, but there are quite a few fires in England as well, aren't there?
There are. We're getting reports, pictures still filtering through of a major fire in Stourbridge in the West Midlands, where homes apparently are on fire. A major incident declared there. 60 firefighters are there, also dealing with a grass fire near a golf course. In Warwickshire, there's another, in Salford Plains, another major incident, 10 appliances there. And what's so concerning, of course, in all of these, as it is here, is the proximity of these fires to homes, and that's why you've got so many fire appliances here and so stretched at this stage.
Indeed. Andy Davis, thank you very much indeed. Well, the Royal College of Nursing has warned that hospitals and care homes are getting so hot they aren't just causing difficulties for the patients, even some of the nursing staff are passing out while on shift. And this latest heat wave is not just causing problems for humans. Zoos are also having to adapt to care for their animals. Sophie Baybrook reports from Oxfordshire.
Take a cold shower. Go for a dip. Find some shade and enjoy a cold treat. Those are Cotswold Wildlife Park and Gardens life hacks for a heat wave on what's the hottest day of the year and the 5th hottest on record. But of course, some find it easier to keep cool than others.
It's really hard work working in this heat. Obviously, it's a really physical job. It's very manual, a lot of cleaning. So we try and get the cleaning done as early as we can before it's the hottest part of the day.
Jenny's a zookeeper in Oxfordshire. Her wildlife park is at the centre of a rare Met Office amber extreme heat weather warning.
We've got no grass out here. Usually this time of the year it'd be really lovely, luscious and green. These are herbivores, so they graze all the time pretty much. And so we're having to feed them hay, which means we are using a lot of our winter stores of hay now in the summer just to keep them happy.
And as the long, hot summer rages on, the records continue to break. Halfway through August, and we've seen 36 days of 30-degree heat and 9 days of 35-degree heat, including today. That temperature has been hit for 4 calendar months in a row, with a record June high of 38 degrees and the driest July on record in England and Wales. So dry that 45 million people in England currently live in a drought area, including the residents of this wildlife park and their neighbours at a care home just down the road.
Well, I wouldn't like it to go on much longer.
One day where it's not so, it's quite livable, and then the next day you just can't cope at all.
How about you, David?
It doesn't bother me.
No, it doesn't.
I find it very
the most
boring
infuriating
that people have got nothing else to talk about.
Remember any other heat waves like this?
Yes, the '76 was. That was red hot because I grew melons in '76.
OK, so residents here don't seem too concerned, but the risk is real. Excess heat-related deaths are dramatically up on last year, and the Royal College of Nursing has said that working conditions in UK hospitals and care homes is inhumane, and that some workers have even collapsed while on shift.
Clearly people are overworked, clearly the pressure and the expectation and the needs of the nurses and the carers is high, so it's definitely a crisis in some aspects, and as a whole country we need to look on how we can improve and solve this issue, but I don't think that's an easy answer at the moment.
Prime Minister Andy Burnham chaired a COBRA meeting yesterday to consider the UK's need to adapt to extreme heat, extremes that are made more likely because of climate change caused by the burning of fossil fuels. But what was left out of that meeting has triggered frustration.
The only thing that is talked about is possibly banning disposable barbecues. This was a moment for leadership, and actually what we got was a monumental dereliction of duty.
As wildfires continue to rage across the country, they're a symbol of extreme consequences to extreme temperatures.
Well, as we face these record temperatures, what should the government be doing? It's not clear exactly where Andy Burnham stands on the climate debate. As official consultations close this week and next, a decision on whether to allow new gas and oil drilling to take place in the North Sea is expected soon. Well, joining me now is the economist Michael Jacobs, Emeritus Professor of Political Economy at the University of Sheffield and a former Prime Ministerial Advisor to Gordon Brown, who's written books on the green economy and ways to rethink capitalism. Michael Jacobs, good to have you on the programme.
Good evening, Matt.
Every time we go through a period like this, and this one is worse, we say this is a wake-up call. Is this what we're seeing, what we're smelling, what we're watching, the wake-up call to make a difference?
Well, one must hope so. But as you say, this is not the first wake-up call. We've had record temperatures over the last few years, since 2000. And of course, this is not the highest temperature that it's going to get. Climate change is not a thing that has now happened to us. It's a trend. And temperatures are getting warmer and warmer. So this won't be the hottest year ever. Within 1 or 2 years, we can pretty certainly predict that the temperatures will get higher. And they will continue to get higher as long as greenhouse gases are being poured into the atmosphere by all countries, including the UK. So this should be the wake-up call, but if it isn't, next year will be another one, and the year after that another one. This is not going away. This is going to get worse.
So we could be looking back at 38.1 degrees as something rather balmy.
We could be looking back at it as normal. What happens with these temperature rises is that the average temperature rises all over the world, and that means that in any one year it could be up or down, but as a trend it's going up. And so this kind of temperature could become quite normal, and we could be looking at 40 degrees as the years that we say, oh, isn't it particularly hot this year?
So the effect is clear, the science is clear, the cause is clear, we're the cause, but the politics is far from clear. Do you know exactly where the Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, stands on this issue?
No, and I don't think any of us do. There's been some briefing out of Number 10, which suggests that he might be a little bit more, the word was pragmatic, on new oil and gas licences, for example, than his predecessor, Keir Starmer and Ed Miliband, who was leading the net zero push within government in the under Starmer. But we've had lots of briefings out of government, frankly, which have not reflected Andy Burnham's views. You may remember Shabana Mahmood was going to be Chancellor, and that proved not to be the case. So I'm not going to take those briefings as proof of where Andy Burnham stands. We will discover this over the next few weeks because the government's got a big decision to make about licences in the North Sea. But I don't think we know really yet where Burnham stands on it.
Well, he has hinted that he might, resume drilling in the North Sea. What would your reaction, as someone who worked for a previous Labour Prime Minister, what would your reaction be to that if he did?
Well, the big decision that the government has to make is whether to sustain its manifesto pledge, which was no new licences for oil and gas drilling in the North Sea. I would be astonished if Andy Burnham reneged on that. He said in other areas that the manifesto that Labour was elected on in 2024 stands, and if it stands, then there will be no new licences. And I don't expect Andy Burnham to change Labour's position on that. The decision that the government has to make in the next few weeks is whether the 2 new oil and gas fields in the North Sea, Rosebank, an oil field, Jackdaw, a gas field, should be given the licences that they've already been granted under the Conservatives, but which were then questioned by the courts. And that's the new decision that needs to be made. And I think at this point, we don't know whether Andy Burnham and the new Climate and Energy Secretary, Miatta Fahnbulleh, which way they will go on those.
And yet, despite the alarming state of the environment, politics has intervened in a quite extraordinary way in this debate, hasn't it? You know, Reform UK call it net zero stupid or net stupid zero. The Tory party has just purged people who still believe in net zero. I mean, what do you make of that political environment?
This is very disappointing. We've had a long consensus across the parties on the need to deal with climate change. Since the Climate Change Act was passed under Gordon Brown in 2008, Conservative-led governments, the Conservative government under Boris Johnson, Theresa May, maintained the view that we had to deal with this issue, as every country around the world is doing. Unfortunately, that has been lost now. As you say, the Conservatives and Reform UK have abandoned their commitment to net zero, to the Climate Change Act, and that's going to make it more difficult. But it was a Conservative government that put in place just a couple of years ago the net zero by 2050 legal target for the UK. And the critical thing about that is that it means that we are legally obliged to reduce our emissions to net zero, like all other developed countries are doing, almost, by 2050. And therefore, if Rosebank and Jackdaw were granted permission, the rest of us would have to cut our emissions by more in order to meet those caps. And that's the big thing which hasn't really been said about this. Those decisions will affect the rest of us because we will pay through lower emissions than we would otherwise have had to make for a decision, any decision to grant those two fields the permits. So I would be surprised if the government does that because the rest of us are going to pay the cost.
You've made that very clear. Michael Jacobs, thank you very much indeed.